好的，我就去查。
可以做半个小时，1个小时。
包猪脚啊？有包猪脚吗？刚刚就是去看那种街道，然后包那种纱布，专门地包。
再也受不了一点了。
Good morning, everyone. Where's others?
Asleep.
Because I said late, they assume no class. It was very heavy rain. Heavy rain here, right? No. I suppose should just sleep after yesterday's replacement class. You know, just sleep here. For me to be stuck in the traffic. Because if I move at 8, I will be coming and sitting in the car like 15 to 20 minutes earlier. So I didn't expect, wow, terrible traffic. I think most of the highways today, I don't know why. Yeah. Okay, so I have another few more chapters to cover under, few more slides to cover under chapter 6. So once I'm done with that, and then we will proceed with chapter 7, which is the second part of the STLC. Okay, so previous lecture slot, I have already discussed about this test plan content based on the IEEE 8 to 9 standard. So I have discussed most of everything, just left the last 4 items, the end part of the test planner. So I have covered until the test execution, is it? Is it test execution? Can I get confirmation on that? Where did I stop? The configuration, environment, development, test execution. Have I discussed this? Have I discussed each of these items? Yes, right? Have I discussed this? And I think suppose should be here. Okay. So the next content of the test plan is the risk and contingencies. So this is something like our risk management. So if you see in our test plan, okay, there is one content called risk management, where you need to identify 2 types of risk, which is the product risk and the project risk. That is for your assignment purpose. So actually, we don't expect for risk to happen, but there is possibilities for it to happen. So when there is any type of risk happen, how we are going to early address that potential risk which might happen, and how we are going to make sure we able to manage the risk so that that particular risk will not disturb or will not stop our testing. So that was the reason why for your assignment I asked you to identify some samples of product risk, where the risk is coming straight from the product itself, and then project risk, where it is something about the testing project. For example, due to the maybe skills of the testers, maybe the instability of the test environment, or there can be any type of project risk can happen too. So how we are going to solve those risks so that it will not be disturbing the testing, and it will not even hold our testing for any delay to happen. Okay, so here the risk and contingency is all about identifying the risk and identifying the right way how we can manage the risk. Okay, so the last few things is actually just about the versioning of the document. So normally when we are preparing our test plan, there will be different review will happen, and then every time when there is review, there will be changes happen. So there might be some new revision numbers or version numbers will be happening. So every time when there is a review happen and what changes need to be done, who need to do the changes, and when this new version will be released, all this suppose we should keep track so that we know where and how, what actually caused some changes to happen. Okay, so suppose like our weekly basis, we are actually going through your assignment progress. So it's something like we are going through your test plan every week, so that you are showing the progress and we are doing the review. So there is changes happen. Every week there will be update happen. So the same thing outside there, this might be called as a change history. So every time when there is some changes happen, we need to keep track of the versioning happen to the test plan. Okay. Then the next thing is the reference document. So this is actually on the top of yours under the table of content. After the overview, your second item is the reference. Am I right? So the same thing goes here. When we are preparing our test plan, what is the document we are referring to? So the reference to any other document, for example, we are referring to any other SRS, requirement document, design document, or even proposal, our project planning, any type of document which we are referring for us to prepare the test plan, we must include as part of the reference document. So the same thing goes for your assignment. Whatever sources you are referring to. For example, you guys are doing the McDonald's application. So whatever information you are getting about McD, about their application, about their company, all this is part of the sources you are getting it. So when you are preparing the test plan, you must include as part of the reference of the document. Okay, so that's it about our test plan. Okay, so hope this IEEE standard give you some ideas of another standard which you are currently using for your assignment. So I try to link them together. I try to show where is the difference, what are the different of the terms and preparation. So different companies might be using different standard in preparing software testing documentation. So we cannot say no. So we just need to explore more standards to know. Okay, so the next thing is about the test suite structure. So after our test planning, if you see, go back to your STLC. Okay, after our requirement analysis, after our test planning, The next thing should be our test case development. So I will introduce some in here, and then we will discuss more on chapter 7, and also how you are going to prepare your test cases for your assignment. Then after that, test environment set up. So as part of your assignment in your test plan, there is test environment requirement. Okay, so where you need to identify all the software, hardware, your data, testing tool, whatever you need to set up the test environment will be the next phase. Then after that, we will proceed with the test execution. It means what you prepare as a test case, using your test environment, you will execute the test. So once you're done with the execution of all your hundreds of test cases, we have achieved all our test exit criteria, then we will do our test cycle closure. So this is how the software testing life cycle will happen. How was the midterm yesterday?
Terrible.
Huh? Terrible? What happened? Jasper? How was it?
0, 0. 1, 0, 0. You say 1, 0, 0.
Okay, 1, 0, 0. Okay, so the test suite here is actually a group or subgroup of test cases. Normally, we have one template. We call it as one test case. Okay, have you all checked on the template for your assignment? You have test case template, right, which you need to prepare for your assignment. So when we are grouping a few numbers of test cases, maybe for one particular module, for one particular function, all the relevant test cases, we group them together. We call them as a test suite. So this test suite is actually combination of multiple test cases where we are testing for a relevant or a respective functions, but in a different way. So if you see, I always ask you to prepare positive test case, negative test case. So if you see one function, you can have multiple test cases because you have different aim to achieve. So you want to see the success of the function, you prepare the positive test case. You want to see different types of error handling for the same function, you will prepare negative test case. So all these few numbers of test cases belong to the same one function. So when we group them together, we call that as a test suite. Are you done eating? You are really disturbing my view. Okay. So these test cases will have a similar test objective because we want to test one particular function, but we are trying to cover different requirement or different specification. So let's assume a login function, the most common function. So for login function, we can have one positive test case where to check on the success of the login function, correct? How many negative test case I can have for login function? How many negative test case I can have for me to check on the error handling of a login function? Minimum I can have 2, right? When the username is incorrect or when the password incorrect. But can I have more? Yes. When something is written invalid, is totally different when you don't enter something. When you did not do something, is totally give you a different effect than when you give something invalid. So we have the possibilities of check more than one variety of negative test cases. So if you see, when we group all these test cases belong to that login function, we are actually having one test suite. Got it? Okay. So requirement document, we will always have this traceability matrix. It means how we are listing down all the requirements and how this requirement can be linked to another requirement and how it can be linked to the test cases. So we always have this traceability matrix as part of our SRS, and that can be used to associate to achieve the testing objective based on the test cases which we are creating. As part of test plan, we don't prepare the test traceability matrix, but this is coming from our requirement document actually, which we will refer back to our test plan. Okay. So the next thing is the test environment. Okay, I will discuss more detail in other chapters. Okay, so test environment. Okay, can I know who is it? Why he came inside? During the class time. You cannot handle it outside, is it? Okay, so test environment. Okay, after we have the development environment where the development team use their own environment to do the development, and then we have the actual working environment. Actual working environment means after the software is going to be delivered out to the end user side, the end user have their own environment where the software will work. In the between of this, we have our testing environment. Okay, this test environment is also known as test bed, not for sleeping purpose, but for testing purpose. Okay, all the combination of software, hardware, network, server, data, devices, any equipment, whatever things we need to set up for us to do the testing later, we call as a test environment. Test environment here not about how big is the room, how nice is the aircon, how nice is the paint. No, not that environment. The environment here is how we set up all these items for us to run the software, to test the software before we will deliver out to the working environment later. So it is very important for us to set up an effective test environment so that during the period of our testing, the environment can be stable enough to do the test execution. Got it? So normally it can be a big challenge when there is some additional equipment or additional testing tool required. So normally small size of test environment is still manageable. But let's assume if you come up with something, a bigger system now, bigger project, so your test environment might be required bigger budget. Okay, so this can be part of a challenge to be faced. Okay, so based on what type of software you are going to test, because if you still remember, our principles say that we cannot test two different systems in the same way. Remember the testing. Principle. Testing
is context dependent.
Context dependent. So every software has its own unique context. Okay, so you cannot set up one general test environment to test any type of software you are developing. When we say a web application, mobile application, can we test them in the same way? Cannot. When we said e-commerce application and online banking application, can we test them in the same way? Cannot. So every software we need to do a proper planning. And the same thing goes when it's a newly developed system. developing system or stable system. We have different strategy, different items, different way how we are going to set up the test environment. Okay, so test environment also need to be reviewed before we will start with the testing. Okay, so you cannot really run away from review here. Okay, so different systems, okay, different types of system, different scope of system will be dealing with the different challenging in preparing the test environment. So some of the system, a simple system, you will need a very small numbers of items to set up as an environment. But if you see like a bigger system, having a bigger range, distributed type of system, you might be dealing with more planning, more items, more equipment. You might need to purchase more things, installation of more things. So everything will be bigger. So different system, we have different way how we are preparing the test environment. But preparing test environment is always one of the test entry criteria. Did you answer it correctly yesterday? The one go to the tutorial yesterday with me, very lucky, huh? Okay, so, okay, test cycle. So I always use this word of test cycle, okay? So when we are starting the test execution, it means we start with our first test case, to execute the first test case. Let's assume we have 500 of test cases. Okay, so when we complete this 500 test case for this project, we have completed one test cycle. So when we are starting the test execution until we complete the test execution, this is called as a test cycle. So normally, as part of our test exit criteria, all test case must be executed at least one time. Remember? So it means we must successfully complete one test cycle at least. One test cycle must be done. Without completing one test cycle, we cannot say, okay, we have achieved the test exit criteria and we are going to end the testing. Never. So test cycle, all the test case must be executed at least one time and we must fill up the test result. That is the main goal of test cycle. So other than that, depend on how we plan for the testing, any failed test case, do we need to rerun them? Remember, we have discussed about retest. The difference between retest and regression test. Remember one of our tutorial question? What was it? Regression test is every time when there is modification happen, we need to do the regression test. But when we say to retest, it means we are repeating the test. So let's assume your exit criteria, okay, you did not achieve this minimum or this maximum, assume. So in that situation, we need to confirm this percentage again. So in that situation, what will happen? All the failed test case need to be rerun to confirm the result. So it means part of retest. So let's assume after we retest, it's still the same. Then we need to do the debugging as soon as possible to fix all the failed test cases so that it can reduce the percentage of the failed test cases and bring up the percentage of the passed test cases. Because until we did not achieve this percentage of our test exit criteria, can you end your test cycle? Cannot. So it is very important what is the aim here. We have to make sure that all the test case must be executed and whatever test exit criteria which we mention here must be achieved too. So if we don't achieve, then there might be need of repeat testing. We call as a retest. So most of the time we focus on the failed test cases to do the retest, to do the debugging, and to retest again, to confirm on the changes of the percentage. Okay? So most of the time, one test cycle is confirmed. But in any situation, we might need to start second test cycle if needed. Okay? Then this revert criteria is in case, okay, as part of our test continuation criteria. It means while we are doing testing, for us to decide either to continue the testing or to hold the testing. Okay, so let's assume if we have reached 20% of the total number of test case cause failure. Okay, let's assume that number can be different. So let's assume if you reach this percentage in a very short period, it means the system is not in a good quality. So in that situation, you need to hold your test cycle. It means we don't want to continue the test cycle while we know the failure cost is really going higher percentage. So it means it is not an effective testing anymore. So whatever fixing we need to be done so that we can reduce the failure cost, and then we can proceed or we can continue with the test cycle. Okay? So the test execution criteria, okay, we need to decide how the test execution should be start, should be proceed. Okay, we need to identify the sequence how we are going to conduct the test case execution. Okay, sometimes we need to know the priority of the test execution. Okay, I think in our tutorial we have discussed about how we will prioritize the testing. So normally maybe we start with all the main functions related test cases first, and then follow with the sub functions, or we go with the high critical one first and then follow with the low critical, or we start with the precondition test cases. Because if the precondition functions is not passed, can we start the other test cases? Let's assume like your student intranet. If your login is not working, can you move it? Can you do other functions? Can we test other functions? Cannot. So in that situation, login is a precondition function here. So we must conduct the test execution on the login function first, because it is a precondition for other function. So in this how to say, like a sequence, we can know which one we need to start first. So this will determine the flow of our test execution. Okay, and other than that, how many times we need to execute each of the test suite. So it's depend. So this can actually determine by the testing team themselves. Okay, then like what I've mentioned, executing the test case once is called as a test cycle. So we have to make sure that we have successfully completed one test cycle. So it means every test case must be executed and must be filled up with the test result. Cannot leave it empty. Okay, and if any situation you need to start the second cycle, it's up to you. Okay, so when we can start the first cycle, so this is always based on the test entry criteria. Have we achieved the entry criteria? If yes, then we can start with our test execution. If we have any of the criteria which is not being achieved, let's assume you have indicated 5 different test entry criteria. So if you did not fulfill the test entry criteria, even one, it means you cannot start with your test cycle. So it is very important what test criteria you are listing and if you able to achieve it or not. So you cannot simply put any test entry criteria which is not relevant. Because if you don't achieve those test entry criteria, you cannot start your test execution. Okay? Okay, then the next thing is the test estimation. Okay, so how we are going to estimate the activities we will be conducting, how we are going to estimate the resources, the budget, the schedule. So we need to have a proper test estimation. So normally it can be done by the project manager and also the test manager. So the first thing is effort estimation. As how we have budget and so on, effort estimation also is needed. So effort here is more onto the human effort. It means the testers, the testing team members, how much effort they need to put for this test execution. So normally when we don't have a proper effort estimation, we might be dealing with some problem while we are doing the test execution later, where it might cause any delay or any insufficient resources. So normally we need to know how many testers we are going to hire for this project. That number is very important. Okay, the number of testers will determine how much cost we are going to spend also, how much time we are going to spend also. Okay, other than that, the cost for any hardware or software, it means part of our test environment requirement. So let's assume all this while we don't have a proper automation testing tool. So all of a sudden your boss asks you to find one testing tool so that we can start to have automation testing, not to be killing all the testers all the time. So now you need to plan for getting an automation testing tool as part of the test planning here. So how much you are going to spend for that? So this is part of the estimation. Other than that, if there is required for any hardware, any equipment, any additional devices. So all this is part of the estimation of the resources. Okay. So this is normally the technique which we can use for test estimation measurement. We are not discussing anything here. Okay, test point estimation, work phase based estimation, use case point estimation. Okay, I think in your software project management later you will be discussing some of this technique. Okay, as part of our chapter 11 later, we will do some measurement using the work, using the line of code, using the function point. That one part of our matrix later in chapter 11. But this technique you will be discussing in the software project management. Okay. Okay, then the next thing is, this is just recalling back about the task dependency. So as part of our test estimation, we need to know how will be our schedule. Okay, which task to start first, which one to start later, which one is going to have long duration, which one need to be complete first so that it will not affect the other tasks, you know. You have discussed all this in your software engineering before when you prepare your Gantt chart, correct? The task estimation, task dependency. So task dependency, just to recall back, is the relationship between two different tasks. Okay, so we have few different types of task dependency, which is finish to start, start to start, finish to finish, start to finish. Still remember all this? Okay, I'm not going to discuss more. So if you see the four types, I think normally the most common one we use finish to start. It means which task we need to finish first, because that will be needed to start another task. Okay, so for example, like if you don't have your test case, can you start your test execution? No. So it means your test case development will be done first. When you finish, then you can start with your test execution. Okay, and then the second one is start to start. It means you must start your task, one task, so that you can start the another one. Okay, so it means until you didn't start, but is it necessary to complete it? Do I need to complete it here? As long I have start, I can start another task. But the first one I must complete, then only I can start. But here, as long I start the task B or task A, I can start the another task. So it means like the run plan preparation cannot begin until the test script writing. So it means I will start the test script writing. While I am doing that, I can start to do the run plan preparation. Okay. Then finish to finish, it means I cannot finish one task until I finish another one. So it means, can I end the testing, or can I done with the test closure report without complete the test execution? I didn't even complete the test execution yet. Can I complete my test closure report? Cannot, because your test execution is not yet finished. You did not even complete your testing yet. How you can complete your test closure report? You know what is test closure report? That you have done the testing. So this is like a closure report. Okay, this is what we have done when you are not even done yet. Okay, so it means you must finish this task so that you can finish the another task. Okay, then start to finish is the task B cannot finish until the task A is start. Okay, this one is normally, do we have any situation where we need to start a task so that we can finish another task? Okay, maybe you can find it your own. Most of the time we might be going with the first one, second one, and the third one. Okay. Okay, then test effort estimation. So like what I have mentioned just now, the effort here is the human effort, human resources effort. So normally based on the number of test cases to be designed, based on the number of test cases to be executed. Okay, so we will do the estimation. So let's assume each of your team you have 4 to 5 members. Okay, so now the number of test cases created by one person per day. Okay, the number of test cases must be executed by one person per day. It's very important for us to have a number there, because if we don't have the number, it will not be balanced. So let's assume I have 500 test cases. Okay, and I have 5 testers here, and I have given 100 test case per person. So how many test cases they must execute per day, so that within the duration we have estimate, they able to finish all the 100 test cases at the same time, because we don't want to cause any delay to happen. Okay, so when we say test effort estimation, it means we want to know how many hours they are going to spend, how many test cases they can prepare, how many test cases they can execute each of the day, so that we know how much total hours we need for our testing project. Okay, so other factor also, how much effort needed to create the test environment. It means for us to set up the test environment, how much effort is needed. So other than that, to conduct any training or to attend any training, how much effort they need. Okay, other than that, the availability of the testers also. Okay, especially if the testers involved with multiple testing project at the same time. So if we don't have a right figure or close to right figure, this can cause problem our test execution later. Okay. Okay, so that's it for our chapter 6, the first part of STLC. Okay, so chapter 7 is the second part of STLC. Okay, we have chapter 6, chapter 7, chapter 8. These 3 chapters is actually about the STLC, like part 1, part 2, part 3. Okay, so the second part of the STLC we are going to discuss after the test execution now. Okay, your chapter 6 we discuss about the requirement analysis, we discuss about the test planning, and then test case development, and also the test environment slightly. So now we are going into the test execution and more detail about the test case and also test environment. Okay, so here we are going to discuss about the test monitoring and control, test data management process, and then the test case creation. Okay, so we have already planned for the testing. Okay, we done with the planning activities, we have come up with the test plan. Okay, just because we already planned for the testing, everything is documented, already distributed to all the software testing members. Can I just sit peacefully? Can I just assume that, oh, okay, everyone know what they supposed to do and they will do. Okay, I'm not going to check anything. Can I? What will happen at the end? A lot of issues, which we supposed should know earlier, because I thought that everyone know what to do because we already planned, we already documented, and you guys can read. You should know what to do, and just because I sit peacefully, whatever issue happened, I did not know earlier, and the small issue become worse. And this might be disturbing the software testing. So to avoid all this, not because I don't trust you guys, but just to avoid all this, we need to do the test monitoring. So we need to track, we need to monitor how the testing execution is carried out. Okay, so the purpose why this test monitoring is important, even though I have done with the test plan, because I still need to get the feedback from the testing team members. So let's assume if I'm the test manager, I need to get the feedback from the testing members so that as the manager, I can give the feedback to the client, to the top management of how the testing is going on. If there is everything okay, or if there is any issues, and where we can improve and how we can solve the issues as soon as possible. So it is very important to do the monitoring here. So if we don't gather the feedback, I will not know. So if I don't let the client or top management know, they might don't know. So that's why it's very important to get the regular feedback so that we can avoid some serious cases and we can improve the testing. Okay, just because you plan doesn't mean 100% is going to work. Okay, then the second one is to provide the visibility of the test result. So if you see here, as part of our test continuation criteria, okay, as part of our test exit criteria, test result is playing very important role. So we must know how this test result is going. So let's assume in first 1 week, we already reach like 20-30% of failure. So it means it's something not good. So what we will do so that it will not get worse. So it is very important for us to monitor so that we can see the result and what we can do about that. So if it's going on well, good, no problem. But if it's not, then we need to do something about it. Okay, so this test monitoring also will be helpful for us to do the measuring of the testers, the status of the testing coverage if it has been achieved, and also the criteria, especially the test exit criteria. So it is very important for us to monitor to know the measurement of all these status. And at the same time, let's assume you are the test manager, whatever you gather through your test monitoring, you can use it for your future estimation. So let's assume what you have estimated now didn't really work well. Okay, you cannot use the same estimation for another project because you already know that this is not good numbers, this is not good estimation. So you can use that as a reference for your future test estimation. Okay, so this will be the purpose why test monitoring is needed. Okay, so normally when it comes to a small project, the test monitoring will be done by the test leader or the test manager, depend on the company, which can be done manually. So it means they can do manual tracking, checking things using document, and then maybe they have like a log book to keep track of what is happening, the positive part, the negative part of happen. Okay, but let's assume if it's a larger complex system, so maybe the manual monitoring is not sufficient, so they need to get support by automation tool. So don't think automation tool is only about testing execution, but can be used for other things also. So as part of the test monitoring, to know some status, to keep track of some status, so we can also use the automation tool for that. Okay, so as part of this test monitoring, we have this one software testing document which called test log. Okay, so this is coming from the IEEE 829 standard also. This test log will be prepared based on our daily monitoring or weekly monitoring. So this test log will be our reference to know what is happening throughout maybe 3 months of the testing before we can end the testing and we can prepare the test closure report. Okay, if you see, you come up with your test plan and your top management have approved your test plan. Okay, throughout your 3 months of testing, you cannot guarantee 100% you able to follow the test plan. There will be some changes due to some unexpected risk or any kind of issue. There will be some changes happen. So when you are preparing your test cycle closure report or testing closure report or test summary report, you need to prove back to your top management what happened to that 100%. Do you understand? What you mentioned, if you get 100%, then your test closure report is very simple. But let's assume out of that 100%, what you mentioned in your test plan, you only able to achieve 50%. Throughout the 3 months of testing, another balance 50%, a lot of messed up happened. So now, if you don't have this test log, what happened on the daily basis, what happened on the weekly basis, what was the issue, how you change this, how you improve this, that 50% is empty. So when you prepare your test cycle or test closure report, your boss will ask what happened to the balance 50%. So you will need this test log as part of the supporting document, how you will show what happened to the balance 50%, which you cannot follow as what you mentioned in your test plan. Do you get? So same thing like for your final project. You have your project 1, you have project 2. You have proposal before that. What you propose, that's what you need to achieve at the end, correct? So what you propose, that's what you have to produce in your project 1, correct? So if your proposal say A, your project 1 say A minus, what happened to your project 2 later? So this is something must be consistent. So the same thing goes, what you mention in your test plan, that's what you need to achieve, and your test closure report must show that you have achieved that 100%. If you don't, then you need to show the proof why you did not able to achieve that 100%. Where is the missing percentage? What happened? So as part of that, this test log is needed. Are you seeing your supervisor regularly? Did you fill up your form every time you are meeting your supervisor? You don't. You know, you have a form, right? That you need to get a signature, what you discussed today, what you discussed today. So this is actually a proof of what you are doing weekly basis. Correct? Nobody do that. Good. Okay, so under the test log here, we have the test log identifier. So every software testing documentation must have unique identifier. And then we have the description. So description here is what test item we are currently testing. Okay, what is the test environment we use to do the test execution, and what is the execution description, what is the result, and then if there is any incident happen. Okay, incident is not only defect. You know what is defect, right? When we said incident, it's not only about getting a defect, but any unexpected behavior, anything happen unexpectedly, we call that as incident also. So you cannot say that, hey, this is not defect, so this is not incident. No, no, no. When you try to do certain execution, as part of your test action, something happens suddenly. The system is behaving something funny in the between of your test action. That is part of your incident. You still need to put it in your test log. Okay? So any incident happen, you still need to document it. So it is nothing about defect only, but any type of incident is counted. Okay? So normally the test leader or the test manager will keep track of this test log document. Okay, for future use later. Okay, so this is just a manual thing. Okay. Believe me or not, when I walk into one company where the previous your senior do internship, you know, so they still handle things in Microsoft Excel. They still like more worse than this. It means like too many data. When they show me, I was like, and you know, it's something like they listed all the test cases, each test case's ID, what is the test case of name, you know, each of it, they are doing the monitoring using Microsoft Excel. Wow, I don't know how they are doing it. Then, you know, I'm not a good person, right? So I will just ask. I said, how you are handling this? I mean, out of shock, I was like, this is like too much to handle. So if there is slight changes happen, if it's not being updated, it can be cause a lot of things, you know. And imagine if like this need to be updated on the daily basis and the person is not updating or something happened. Wow, I was like, I said, so there's no plan of using any automation tool. They said they prefer like this. Okay, done. My visit is done. Seriously, huh? So don't be shocked when you go outside there. If the companies is asking you to prepare something using manual way, just get ready for that. Okay, because they are still prepare things like this. Okay. Okay, then the general matrix, okay, on how we are doing the monitoring. Okay, so normally we have different techniques how we are going to do the monitoring. So like what I said, it can be manual, it can be automation tool, so it's depend. Okay, are we using any template, any figuring, any spreadsheet? Okay, so this is normally based on the preference of the testing team or the testing managers or the stakeholders. Okay, so as long they understand the need and the goal of the project, they know what they are doing, how they are monitoring, and if they are preferring to use the manual way, we cannot stop them. Okay, so depends, maybe they have some financial thing or maybe budget constraint or maybe they get used of this manual way, so it's depend. Okay, as long they have a way how they are doing a monitoring, then that should be okay. Okay, then in general the matrix, so matrix will be like more to calculation. It means when we have a figure, we use that figure for us to do the estimation or for us to do the calculation, for us to know how the test execution is going on. So it means we call as a matrix. So normally the purpose why we use this matrix is we want to see what we have planned earlier and what we have achieved now. Are they tally or not? You plan 100%, did you able to complete 100%? Based on your number of test cases, based on your test estimation with your number of testers, your test environment, everything. What you plan, you able to achieve or not? We cannot do qualitative measurement. We need to have quantitative measurement. Qualitative means you just assume that this is achieved, this is not achieved, but it is not going to be accurate. So that's why we need to have a proper matrix also to do this quantitative measurement, so that we can able to see how is the achievement, what is the gap happen between what you plan and what you achieve, so that if there is any issue happen, we able to handle it. So this is part of the matrix which we will use during our test monitoring. Okay. So this can be also helpful. The matrix or the measurement from the matrix will also be helpful to give us the status of the testing. So it means when we do the analysis, when we do the designing, when we do the testing, how it can give us the status. Did we achieve? Did we have any problem? How is the quality? All these can be measured also. So later in our chapter 11, when we are discussing our software quality assurance, we will discuss about the matrix to do the measurement. Okay, so other than that, the economics of the testing, so more to the budget, more to the cost, how much we spend, how much we have wasted, how much we have saved, all this can be measured also. Then the test summary report will be another way how we do the monitoring. So the test summary report, like the test closure report, I will discuss in chapter 8 later. Okay. Okay, so when we do the monitoring, we are not stopping there, but it must be continue with the test control. So it's something like you have a risk, you identify the risk, and then you need to able to manage the risk. So the same thing goes here. When you do the test monitoring, whatever you have identify during the test monitoring, you need to able to control it. Because as what I've mentioned, whatever you have planned for your project, for your development, for your testing, do not always able to achieve exactly how you plan. That's the truth. Okay. Currently, I'm having 10 project 2 students. I have one project 1. Where is it? Okay. I have 10 project 2 students. Currently, they are doing their project 2. You know how many changes compared to what they have proposed in project 1? Because when you are writing the report, when you are proposing your chapter 1 until chapter 4, it is so easy. Why? Because this and that. You have imagined this. You can put this requirement, this design, this UI look, everything. Then they got A for project 1. When come to project 2, what happened? The reality is coming. What you have mentioned, you need to make it work now. And what happened? They know that they cannot do this. Even now at project 2, Miss, can we change the programming language now? Can we change from mobile web application to mobile application now? Can you imagine? Compared to what they have proposed 2 semesters back. Now they want to change it. It's a big trouble, you know. You are allowed to do little changes. So let's assume your UI looked nicer before. It's not nice now. So it means that is little changes. Not like changing entire thing, like changing the platform, changing the module, changing the functionality. It means you did not able to achieve your objective. So that's why I always say that what you plan, you will not able to achieve 100% when it comes to software. Anything can come out. Okay, here it's not about client changing requirement. You are changing your own requirement now. Because you thought you can do this earlier. Then when it comes to the reality, it's so sad. I don't know how many is going to fail, seriously, this round. For my 10 students, only 5 is even coming to see me to show the progress. Another 5, I don't know where they're gone. Don't be in that situation. Okay, so project do not always unfold as what we've planned. So anything can come up. So that is the reason why we always address the possible risk can happen. So that we able to control the risk when something unexpectedly happen. So this is because we don't want the testing project to go far than what we have planned. So how we able to control the issue happen and bring back the project under the control is very important. So the test monitoring here is not about monitoring, put the report and done. No, it is about how you identify something and how you are addressing something to make it in control so that your testing will not stop. Your testing will not delay. So to avoid all this, it's very important how we can do the corrective action here so that the testing can be still go on as how we plan. Got it? So that is the purpose of test control. Okay, the next thing is the test data management process. So as part of our testing, okay, we have to deal with test data. As part of our test environment, we have this test data. Okay, without the data, we cannot proceed with our test execution. So when we say test data management process, first we need to analyze the data. Okay, we need to know what data we need for our testing purpose. So we need to have a thorough analysis of all different kind of data which will be required for our test case. So normally I will say valid data, invalid data, so that you can aim your test case objective. Then other than that, the setup, data setup. So first we need to know what type of data we want to use. Are we going to use live data, production data, or are we going to come up with artificial or generated data? Okay, so the second one is data setup to mirror the production environment. We might not able to access to the live data or production data all the time, but can we come up with something similar to that? Yes. So that's why we need to mirror to the production, the real working environment. When we set up the testing environment, our testing environment must be similar to the working environment, not development environment. Because the end user will not use the development environment to run the software, but they have the actual working environment. So when we are setting up our testing environment, it must be similar to that, not similar to the development environment. So when we are dealing with the data for our testing purpose, we need to have a setup of the data which is similar to the actual production data. So we need to understand the end users data and how we are going to use the similar data to that. Okay. Other than that, let's assume if we are using a live data, a production data, how we are going to do the test data cleanup. Because if you want to use something which is being stored for years, you want to use it for your testing purpose, you need to get ready to do cleaning of data, because you might not need all the data there, and there might be a lot of junk data there. Okay, there was a group of RSD students before, they came for this course. They were working on timetable system for TAR UC before. Okay, they spent 1 month to do the data cleaning, and then they get to know that they actually don't need the data. 1 month. That time this course was offered together with project 2, but now we have restructured it so that it will be taken earlier than project 2, you know. So the student was like, Miss, we have wasted like 1 month. You know, they took from the database of TAR UC, and can you imagine how much data can be there? And they might be needing very simple data for their unit testing, and then they end up do cleaning like a month because too many data which they don't need. Then I asked them, do you really need the actual data there? Then they said they just can come up with like dummy data. Okay, so if we are going to use the production data, we need to get ready for that. Do we require the production data? Because we are going to deal with huge number of data, and we might need to do the data cleanup. Okay, then we need to also identify sensitive data, and we are going to protect that. It's very important, because when we are using the real data, we cannot simply share out the data. So other than that, automation to create the test data. So if we are not using any production data, we can do the automation creation of the data. So we can fulfill the requirement based on artificially creating the data. Okay, then effective data refresh using central repository. This is also very important. Normally testing team have their own centralized database where they store all the data for testing purpose, so that everyone can be accessed to the same latest and updated data. Okay, so later in our chapter 8, we will discuss more about data, test data. Okay. Okay. Are you guys rushing for class in the West Campus? It's already 11:45. Yes. Okay. So I will stop until here. Okay, so we will continue with the creation of the test case. Because I I know that everyone started to look at the watch, keep on looking. So I know you are not paying attention anymore. Okay, go.
你看吧。这是。automation created data. No need to shield sensitive data，因为它自己 automation， 因为这 automation 所以都是。这有问题，问题。现在有。